Brad Meltzer is a good friend, been a good friend for a long time. He is History Decoded. He writes
He's a greedy bastard, though. I mean, we were just here, 15, 20 minutes ago with you on another book. How many books
do you publish? It's sick.
I mean,
you got to somebody turn on his microphone.
Is it one a week? Is it 2 or 3 a month? What is the...
I just need a nap. That's all.
Yeah, that's what it is. So he walks into the studio and we start talking about some history stuff that both of us are kind of working on, in our own personal lives. And we just are both fascinated. And I said, so what do you have going on? And he's like, well, we're going to do a sleepover,
at the National Archives.
At the National Archives.
I mean, come on, this is a big one.
What?
Right?
This is the coolest thing ever.
So we do History Decoded, right?
Yeah.
We do our book. And because of it's really because of the thriller. When we did The Fifth Assassin, my character's an archivist in the National Archives. So I become very friendly with the Archivist of the United States. And I say to him, the Smithsonian gets all the good press, but the National Archives is where the Declaration of Independence is. It's where the Constitution is. It's where all these great documents, you can actually go see them. And, the sad part is, if you go to the National Archives today, you know what the number one question that people ask the guards? Is there really a treasure map on the back of the Declaration of Independence?
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not joking. That's what they think. Because of National Treasure, because of a Nick Cage movie.
Is there?
And there's not, you know what? But let me tell you, I love you for asking.
Did you use the special...
the special thing. But you know what is on the back?
Because you have to put mayonnaise on it.
On the back. Right? It is true. You could use mayonnaise, though. They love that there. Is what's really on the back of the Declaration of Independence, and I promise this is true, is a handprint. And nobody to this day knows whose handprint it is.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really there. And you can look in the bottom right corner. When you go there next time, you can physically see it because it's actually soaking through from the back. But I said to the archivist, why don't we do...
How big of a handprint is it? Is it a whole hand?
Yeah, a whole hand. Full hand. But you can't tell the fingerprints, or if they are, no one knows who they are because CSI back then was not as good as it is today.
Really? They didn't have that TV show?
They didn't have the blue lights.
Wow, okay. Huh.
But we're doing a sleepover in the National Archives, 100 families. We're bringing...
Why haven't I gotten the invitation?
Listen,
this is
you are
really
invited. You know that.
No.
You have to produce
don't
children.
Say that, because I am coming if I'm invited.
The crazy part is, so we open it up, 100 families fill it up. We have, I think, a 200-person wait list. And the best part is we're going to do, every kid that comes gets a copy of I Am Abraham Lincoln and I Am Amelia Earhart. And the real fun of it for me is history is going to come alive for these kids. Right? These kids are never going to forget this moment. They're going to do that. We're going to do a scavenger hunt through the archives. And the goal is to remind people.
I want this guy's job. How you are probably the only person that I know that I covet your job.
Well, we could trade for the studio.
First of all, why do you not work for me?
Quit
this whole
that.
What is it, Discovery or History Channel or whatever it is you're doing.
I know.
There's no future there.
I appreciate that. I'm sure they all appreciate it. I love you for it.
All right, I want to talk to you about a couple of things. You have 2 children's books out. The I Am Abraham Lincoln and the I Am Amelia Earhart. Mainly, I think, let's just be honest, because you're politically correct, you want to make sure that there's something for the girls, too.
No, it's not for girls. I have a daughter. If I don't do a daughter book, do you know what I hear in my household? I did Heroes for my son, and my daughter, the moment she could speak, was like, where's my book? And Heroes for my daughter had to be birthed right there. Right. So, no, it's solely about self-preservation.
Yes, I know. Okay, so I Am Abraham Lincoln, and it kind of goes through, it's like a cartoon book. And it kind of tells the story of Abraham Lincoln. So you can read it to your kids, and they get an early introduction to 2 great heroes.
Yeah, well, the books came about because I was tired of watching my kids look at reality TV show stars and loudmouth athletes and think that's a hero. And I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, that is fame. And being famous is very different than being a hero. And I thought, you know what I do with history? I have so many better heroes for them. So I have Rosa Parks and I have Amelia Earhart and I have Abraham Lincoln. I'm going to tell them those stories. But when you see in the books, we did these illustrated children's books. But what you see is, of course, you're going to see Lincoln free the slaves, and of course, you're going to see the things we all know about them. Mm-hmm. But to me, the most vital part of the book is when you see these characters when they're younger. You
tell
see
the
them
turtle
as children.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we get along. I mean, this is my favorite story in there. Mm-hmm. Is you see them when they're younger because then you see the power and the potential in each of us. So I found this story. No one has this story, right? I know. I mean, this is a story that is absolutely true. When Abraham Lincoln was 10 years old, he comes upon, he loves animals. He comes upon a group of boys that are playing with turtles, and he goes, I love turtles. Race is over. He sees they're not playing with the turtles. What they're doing is they're taking hot coals and they're putting them on the backs of the turtles. They're torturing them, trying to get them to run fast. And in that moment, Abraham Lincoln sees this injustice. And when you're 10 years old or when you're 40 years old, it is sometimes hard to do the right thing, but someone has to. And Abraham Lincoln in that moment says, take the clothes off the turtles. You can't do that. You can't torture these turtles. Stands up for these creatures and basically stands up to this injustice, stands up to the bullies. And when my young son reads that and I read that with him, he says, Dad, Abraham Lincoln likes animals just like me. He's brave just like me. And now Abraham Lincoln in spirit is alive again and just as vital. Because when I tell my kids, yeah, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, they don't care. They can't relate to it. It's obviously a vital fact. But when you give them something like that, when he's young,
this is what they tried to do. This is what they tried to do with George Washington with the cherry tree, but that was a lie.
It was a lie. Right, it was a fiction. I said, I always say,
no, it wasn't a fiction. It's a lie.
Yeah,
how you're
totally,
trying to teach somebody to tell the truth by lying about them is amazing.
Course. And you know what the amazing part is you see it even in Amelia Earhart all the time, right? She was married to a guy who was a publicist selling papers, so they made up all these stories about her. What I said is, let's find the real stories. So again, if I tell my daughter that Amelia Earhart flew across the Atlantic in a plane, my daughter goes, Dad, everyone does these days. Big deal. But if I tell her this true story that when Amelia Earhart was 7 years old, she built a homemade roller coaster in her backyard, that she took a wooden crate, she put roller skating wheels on the bottom of the crate, she lugs it up to the roof of her tool shed. She gets on the top of the tool shed, puts two big wooden planks from the roof coming down. She looks down at her sister. She greases it with lard because she wants to move faster. She looks down at her sister and says, I'm going first. And her sister looks up and goes, yeah, genius, you go first. And then she gets in the crate, comes careening down, crashes, feels the wind in her face. It's the first time Amelia Earhart really flies. Her stomach bottoms out from under her. And then she tumbles, gets up and yells something like, that is awesome. Now my daughter reads that and she goes, Dad, Amelia Earhart's like me. She's brave, she's daring, and most of all, she's fun. And now history is fun again for these kids. And to me, that's what's wrong today is we've lost the definition of hero. The definition of hero is broken. And my goal here is to set it right and give kids heroes again because we need them.
Finish this phrase. Everything I am, I owe.
For me?
No. Abraham Lincoln. I was shocked this was not in the book.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Everything I am, I owe to my mother.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me, obviously.
Yeah. In the story of Abraham Lincoln being abandoned by his father.
Abraham Lincoln has more stories that we couldn't put in the book for sheer space because it's a children's book.
He is just an amazing guy.
No, let's talk about it because I'd love to tell the story. I mean, we found.
I'm sorry,
stories.
Mister. I'm going to sleep with the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Have you ever held Abraham Lincoln's axe?
I have actually the bullet that killed him.
No, they had the axe.
No, not the axe.
Well, okay.
I haven't. You got that one?
No, I don't have it.
Oh no, I want to know.
It's at the Smithsonian, and it's really cool to see because the story behind it is so cool. He was building a log cabin for somebody. The axe head came off of his axe, and they could never find it. And they spent all day looking for it, and they couldn't find it.
Which means he moved that sucker with such speed, right, that this thing went a mile away.
And so they couldn't find it. They looked everywhere. And about 50 years later, somebody calls Smithsonian in its infancy and says, this is Abraham Lincoln's axe head. And they said, look, it has AL on it. And they're like, yeah, right. Okay, I mean, sure. They went back and they traced and they found the girl who was a little girl, now an old lady, and they found her and she said, I helped look for the axe head. Where was it? When they moved that cabin, it was found under the floorboards. Instead of going behind, it went down and went
straight into the ground.
Went straight into the ground.
I love it. Yeah, no, the stories we found for him, I mean, and there were stories that we did put in here. You know, one of my favorite stories that's in here is he comes upon a group of bullies. And when he's 22 years old, he moves to Illinois. And these bullies, the Clary Grove boys, they're a group of bullies who basically say they want to fight the new guy, check him out, see what he's made of. And Lincoln, basically what they used to do, instead of fist fight back then, they would wrestle. And the way wrestling worked, it wasn't like you pin them in the count of three. What you did is you had to grab each other, and you couldn't break your hold. Wherever you grabbed them, you kept a hold. And whoever got knocked down first was the loser. And the guy who was fighting Jack Armstrong, is the leader of the bullies, basically cheats, lets go, grabs Lincoln's leg, and throws him. Now, Lincoln, as it says in the book, he's not mad that he lost, right? Everyone loses sometimes. You got to teach your kids that. What he's mad at is they cheated. And he gets up and he says, listen, that you cheated. That's not fair. And they say, well, yeah, you're going to fight all of us? And he says, I'll fight every single one of you one by one, fair and square. And to this day, no one in history knows, because I tried to keep it very true to history. I want it never to be that lie, that George Washington lie. Some people say it's because he was so calm. Some people say it's because he was so brave and he stood up to them all. No one knows the real answer. You can't get in the heads of these kids, but there's many accounts of that moment. But what they do in that moment is they say, you're an okay guy, Abraham Lincoln. You're on our side now. And he wins them over by standing up to the bully. And, I'll tell you that it's amazing to watch my kids react to that, because my kids can relate to that story. So we kept trying to find, I wanted to use the story of obviously his father and his mother, because he has this horrible relationship with one.
Horrible.
Amazing with the other. And one of my favorite stories that we,
with his stepmother, which is really even
very special, right?
Very
for a lot of people out there.
And she teaches him to read.
Right,
I mean,
that's how he learns to read. His father doesn't even want him to read it, and he's reading for his dad, who can't read for him. Which again, the resentment that gets developed there. But there were things I felt like I had to put in here. So we put in here, when he's a little boy, he's walking 5-6 miles for a book. But it was important to me, what books? My kids want to know that. It's a children's book for kids. What books Abraham Lincoln reading as a kid? Robinson Crusoe. I love that he reads Aesop's Fables. Of course, I had to put in there he reads the Bible, one of his favorite books he reads. You know what other favorite book he has? There's a book on a guy named George Washington. That blew my mind. Right, here's a little kid named Abraham Lincoln, and his favorite book that he wants to grow up to be is a guy named George Washington.
And as well as I do, that used to be the standard up until about 1920, that every kid was fed a steady diet of George Washington.
Of course.
They loved their books on George Washington constantly. The kids were just eating them up all the time. And he was every American's hero. And that begins to change in the progressive era as they try to destroy him and dismantle him.
Right. And
for a good reason.
Right. I mean, and the amazing part is I just said that has to be in there.
Yeah.
The things we didn't put in there, and these are the things I love. I don't know if you ever heard this story, is Lincoln is he's riding on his horse, and he comes across some birds that come out of the tree, and the nest comes out of the tree, and he stops the horse, stops the people he's riding with, and he picks up the birds, picks up the nest, puts it all back together, and the guy who he's riding with, is almost laughing at him and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Why are you stopping for some birds? Who cares?" And he says, if I didn't stop, I wouldn't stop being able to think of them. You got to do right. I need my kids to know you have to do right. And to me,
touching a bird's nest would be bad. Because
thanks for thanks for pointing out that Abraham Lincoln killed those birds. That's what he did.
And
touching them,
abandoned those
birds, and now they
starved to death. And a butterfly wing on one side of the planet. God only knows what it did to the other side of the earth.
But I said, for me, our kids are going to pick heroes, whether we like it or not. You might as well have some say in it.
The name of the book. There's two of them. I Am Amelia Earhart and I Am Abraham Lincoln. They're available in bookstores everywhere. From Brad Meltzer, a true historian, a guy who really gets it, a guy who understands we've got to grab on to the culture and we've got to grab on to our own history. I can't urge that you would buy these books for your children strongly enough. Brad Meltzer, I Am Amelia Earhart, and I Am Abraham Lincoln. Thank you very much, sir.
I appreciate it, sir.
All right.